Man, this past month has been loaded with the release of real-time strategy games. With the StarCraft 2 beta, Supreme Commander 2, and now Command & Conquer 4, I've really got my nose deep in these games. Too bad I still suck at them. Seriously, it's tough for a casual gamer to become good at any of these because each one has unique mechanics and requires more than the week of time I'm able to devote to them to really become competitive. So, with all the new strategy games available, which one are you supposed to pick up? Well, Electronic Arts was kind enough to provide me with a copy to review for you, so of course I'll give you my honest thoughts on the game. If you'd like to see a bunch of HD gameplay footage beyond what I'm going to show in the review, check out my other channel, Zeitgeist Other, and make sure to follow me on Twitter to get daily updates on the games I'm playing and my upcoming review schedule. Released for the PC for $50, here's Command & Conquer 4: The Tiberian Twilight.
Never before have we seen such collaboration between Nod and GDI.
For the past year or so following the events of the last Command & Conquer, Nod and GDI have been working together on the Tiberium Control Network, which is essentially the opening of a portal to the Skrin homeworld that should essentially remove the Tiberium from the planet. Recall, in Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars, the alien race known as the Skrin had invaded the planet in the middle of the Nod and GDI war, giving you the ability to control 3 different and unique factions, much like in StarCraft. Well, this time around the Skrin are not actually in the game, so it's back to the standard good versus evil. The game begins with you playing as the GDI for a few missions, until a political battle erupts requiring you to choose whether you want to follow Commander James in the GDI, or follow Kane and Nod. Basically, the world is siding with Kane, and his plan to open the portal to the Skrin world, and Commander James doesn't want to have anything to do with it. On top of all this, a rogue Nod faction under the command of a man named Gideon is stirring trouble for both playable factions. To be honest, I didn't really care for the story of this game. The characters and overall plot of the previous game were much more interesting. Luckily, the new and unique gameplay mechanics make up for my lack of interest in the mediocre story.
Enemy unit sighted.
Fully operational. I'm listening. Moving along.
Typically in real-time strategy games, including all of the previous iterations of Command & Conquer, you build your base, harvest some kind of currency, build buildings, base defenses, and amass a large army to destroy your opponent. Well, things have changed. In Tiberian Twilight, you're now given an option between one of 3 crawlers, an offensive, defensive, and support mobile base that creates all of your units. Each crawler has a different set of units that it can build, as well as provide upgrades and sometimes support buildings including turrets and bunkers. That's it. No more gathering Tiberium, building a massive base, or pumping out large armies. In fact, you typically won't control more than a dozen units at a time, as you can only control 1 crawler at a time, and each crawler can only support a limited amount of units. So, while I didn't care for the fact that I couldn't amass a huge army, I did like that I had to use a lot more strategy to accomplish my goals. It only took me about 10 hours to complete both the GDI and Nod campaigns, so there really isn't that much campaign content. In fact, the GDI campaign is only 10 levels, and the Nod is only 7, though I found the Nod campaign to be much more interesting. To spice things up, this time around you have the ability to play all the campaign missions co-op with several of your friends at a time, while the difficulty adjusts to keep things challenging. There's also support for multiplayer matches of up to 5 versus 5, with customizable bots that can fill in for human players. You can even designate observers to watch your epic battles.
Enemy unit sighted.
Being that the crawlers are your only source of unit creation, you now gain experience points as you destroy enemy units and complete missions, so that your character levels up, granting you access to new units, upgrades, and support buildings. With that, there are simply a ton of different units that you'll be able to utilize in each battle, and each unit has its own strengths and weaknesses. Some may be good at attacking medium vehicles, but can't attack air. Some may be able to attack air only, but are weak against infantry. So there's a lot of strategy involved in which units you want to use, especially considering you can only control a dozen or so at a time. Each mission you're allotted a certain number of crawlers, and different portions of each mission may require you to swap to a new one. Initially, you may need to assault an enemy fortress with an offensive crawler, and then hold your position with a defensive crawler. The offensive crawler has a cannon attached to it to attack foes with the units. The defensive crawler can build tunnels, turrets, and bunkers, and the support crawler can use special abilities like repairing units in a large area or creating a minefield. Something that bothered me as I played was the significant difference in difficulty settings. I started the game on normal, and after a few missions I was getting my butt whooped, so I dropped down to easy, but then it was a cakewalk until the end of the game. There didn't seem to be a true medium difficulty setting. I like to feel challenged, but not to the point where I'm stressing out for an hour to complete a simple mission. I should have to work for it, but not to the point where I'm pulling out my hair because I can't fight off 2 enemy crawlers at a time.
Mastodon reactivated.
Enemy crawler detected.
The graphics in the game look great, but I really didn't notice a significant difference over the previous Command & Conquer. The units are highly detailed, the environments look great, and the game ran at a smooth 30 frames per second for the entire game with Vsync enabled. Now, it wouldn't be a Command & Conquer game without the live action cutscenes before and after each battle, but the actors this time around I found to be really crappy. The previous titles had some big name actors pop up here and there to spice things up, but this time around they're really just blah. This likely is why I didn't really get attached to the story. The music on the other hand was really great. The music in the battle, especially for the Nod campaign, was freaking awesome and really got me into the mood to kick some ass. All in all, the presentation of the game was just pretty average by what I'd consider to be today's standards. Nothing really stood out and wowed me, it was just average.
Hang it in there, sir. The crawler cannot go down.
So what are my final thoughts on Command & Conquer 4: The Tiberian Twilight? I just wasn't really attached to the story. The acting was very mediocre and I never really got attached to the characters. The ending of the campaign was just stupid. Well, just all in all the story kind of sucked. I suppose that's okay though because the unique gameplay is pretty fun and really involves a lot more strategy than the previous titles did. Electronic Arts has done something a little different here by straying from the mechanics of the previous titles, so if you like to build bases and amass large armies, you might not like this title. I also think that the removal of the third Scrin faction was a bad move, as it offered a wider range of gameplay dynamics. As far as real-time strategy games go, this likely could hold you over until StarCraft II is released, but I don't see it being a contender for the RTS market after that. What do you think? Leave your questions and comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and register at zeitgeistgamereview.com.